Whether or not the Easter Bunny stopped by your house this morning, I've still got a treat for you. Yes, that's right. It's the great lefty freakout over Elon Musk, electric car maker, private space pioneer, and now free speech warrior. You see, it seems Musk is threatening to turn the headquarters of the speech police Stasi, also known as Twitter, into a true open forum of ideas and debate simply by buying it and taking it over. Pretty radical stuff, isn't it? Well, actually, it is to the radical left, which is horrified at the thought that it might lose the opportunity to ban conservatives for saying hateful things like men can't have babies, and entire media outlets for saying inconvenient things like, well, I don't know, the president's son is a coked-up, hooker-loving petri dish of corruption and God knows what else. Here's Robert Reich, former U.S. Secretary of Labor turned Guardianista columnist, fretting that Musk might take over Twitter and, God forbid, let people say what they think. This is what he said. He said, Musk says he wants to free the internet, but what he really aims to do is make it even less accountable than it is now, when it's often impossible to discover who is making the decisions about how algorithms are designed, who is filling social media with lies, who's poisoning our minds with pseudoscience and propaganda, and who's deciding which versions of events go viral and which stay under wraps. Geez, if there isn't been a definition of gaslighting, I don't know what it is. But Reich, of course, is perfectly happy for the current status quo, which allows Twitter and Twitter's employees to go so far as banning satirical sites like the Babylon Bee. Washington Post correspondent and war cheerleader Max Boot saying, I am concerned about what Elon Musk's takeover bid means not just for Twitter, but for our democracy. Anyone who thinks the problem with social media is too much content moderation rather than too little should not own one of the most powerful platforms. Not to be outdone, journalist, if that's the right word for him, David Leavitt, tweeted, if Elon Musk successfully purchases Twitter, it could result in World War III and the destruction of our planet.
Hyperbole.
Now, is it World War III or is it World War II we're talking about? Because here's journalism school professor, and of course he's a journalism school professor, Jeff Jarvis, tweeting, today on Twitter feels like the last evening in a Berlin nightclub at the twilight of Weimar, Germany. But for sheer chutzpah, you can't beat the Washington Post, which editorialized earlier this week that, quote, Musk's appointment to Twitter's board shows that we need regulation of social media platforms to prevent, wait for it, rich people from controlling our channels of communication. Hello? Sorry, is this the same Washington Post that is owned by Amazon billionaire Jeff Bezos, who used his paper to mount a personal jihad against Donald Trump? Democracy dies in darkness indeed, choking on irony. Pull the other one, Bezos. It plays Easter Parade.
God bless you all.
So funny, yes.
What
James
was going on
Ritter.
there? I think I've got a
Yes.
theory about what happened there. I think that he was trying to shake hands with the ghost of Corn Pop.
Very good. Or corn flute.
Or
There you
corn
go.
flute.
There
Yeah. You look at the leadership of the American government right now, and it looks like, the old days of the Soviet Union when all the elderly, apparatchiks would be standing there in their bearskin hats with emphysema on Lenin's tomb watching the troops roll by. What is happening here with this, you call it American gerontocracy that's going on? And is that part of the reason why the American leadership class is getting so frankly decrepit?
Well, I think it is, James. It's a gerontocracy, which means rule by the extremely elderly. And the clip you showed of Joe Biden earlier is typical. Almost every time he makes a public appearance, there's a video clip like this. It's obvious he is suffering from dementia. It's obvious he is not fully functioning, but he's not the only one. You know, one thing that people do is they take the average age of the president, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the Majority Leader of the Senate. They average those three, the senior officials in the federal government. Well, right now, the average age of those three is 77. Nancy Pelosi is actually the oldest, and she is frankly gaga. The youngster in that group is Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who was a law school classmate of mine. And, you know, so we see this over and over again. A member of the United States Senate said recently in a private conversation, so I won't say his name, that a third of the members of the Senate ought to be in nursing homes. And it's a real problem. The voters, I think, need to start recognizing it is time for a new generation.
This week, there was at the Arizona State University, though, this is a really funny story. They falsely accused a black African-American DJ of wearing blackface during a charity event for the Scottsdale Unified School District, when in fact, actually, the gentleman in question was African-American.
Do you know the official cash rate off the top of your head?
Oh, look, we can do the old Q&A stuff over 50
But
different...
do you know it?
Over 50 different figures.
National unemployment rate.
National unemployment rate at the moment is... I think it's 5.4. Sorry, I'm not sure what it is.
What's the official cash rate? What's the unemployment rate? Oh, details. Anyway.
Do you think that your role as a research officer for Tom Uran really constitutes an economic advisor to the Hawke government?
I was employed as an economic policy advisor to a minister in the Hawke government. That's not a surprise, that's just a fact.
Sorry, fact check, as they say. As the Australian newspaper reported, Albanese was indeed an electorate officer, not a ministerial advisor. Big difference to the hard left MP Tom Uran, who was in the Hawke outer ministry, and by the way, was also opposed to an awful lot of the Hawke government's reforms. The closest Albanese would have gotten to being an economics advisor in that office would have been collecting money for the Christmas drinks.
Your 50% reduction in emissions target is going to actually save families
Absolutely.
in the next term of government. In the next term of government, how much?
Yes, absolutely.
How much? How much?
It depends on it would depend on the family and it depends on the circumstances. But the modelling is to say that this can save literally thousands of dollars. I think a car, the lifetime of a car that can save, again, thousands of dollars for Australian families. And I think that's really exciting for Australian families.
That's double the price of a conventional car first. I mean, that's not
so. I think this is the opportunity where government, if it does the right sort of policies to encourage electric vehicle uptake, it can actually reduce some of those upfront costs as well as reduce consumers get the benefit of that.
Come on. Rowan, Rita, hang on. So now, what did we just see here? Well, I mean,
Spend. Allegra, spender by name, spend your money, your tax dollars on electric cars for wealthy people.
But she doesn't just watch. She doesn't want to spend tax dollars. She wants you to go out and spend your money subsidizing her ridiculous policies and plans.
Boris Johnson has come out and he has said that trans women cannot compete in girls' sports. So Boris Johnson agrees 100% with Catherine Deves. Okay? So if you are prepared to follow him on net zero, we'll follow him on this, James.
And I think it's really important with this issue because it is really interesting and telling what people like Alex Antic do when they get people to just be absolutely flummoxed by the simple definition of what is a woman. Hello, it is an adult human female, end of story, that they can't even answer that. But it is also, from a policy point of view, really important to keep this issue focused on women's sport, because this is really where that conflict between fairness to biological women and this word inclusion, which has taken on such an Orwellian meaning as the left uses it as a baseball bat to whack all of its critics and anybody who doesn't want to go with its extreme social engineering policies over the head with. Keep it focused on that. It's a basic question of fairness People know exactly what you mean, and this is how this issue is resolved. Speaking of the bedwetters, what do we say about New South Wales Treasurer Matt Keane, who was just moments ago on this network given a positive name check by the deputy leader of the federal Labor Party, and who gleefully joined in the lynch mob attacking Catherine Deves? Now, I'm sorry, but if we're talking disendorsement and booting people out of the New South Wales Liberal Party, I reckon Matt Keane has to go a lot sooner than Catherine Deves. And again, congratulations to the Prime Minister for taking the right side, dismissing the objections of Keane, and supporting Tony Abbott and others on this issue.
Now, I don't share Matt's view. I share Tony Abbott's view. I'm not joining that pile-on.
But I keep seeing out of the United States more and more reports, although they aren't hugely publicized, which I think is distressing in and of itself, of these anti-Semitic attacks specifically targeting Jews. There was an attack in New Jersey where a guy went on a 10-hour rampage and stabbed an Orthodox Jewish man in Lakewood Township in New Jersey. I see from people I know who live in New York still, where I'm from, that especially out in Brooklyn and Queens, around Orthodox Jewish neighborhoods, they're just the victims of random street crimes all the time, targeted specifically because of this. Why are we not hearing more about this from the American media, which seems so quick to jump on a hate crime whenever it fits the left-wing narrative?
I wish I knew the answer as to why. But the fact of the matter is, there's been a 300% rise in anti-Semitic attacks in New York City in January, 400% rise in February. It's an actual problem. If you're visibly Jewish, right, if you're an Orthodox Jew and you're walking around, you are in danger right now, let alone if you are a target of anti-Israel, which turns into an anti-Semitic attacks like we saw in May when a group of protesters walked out of a car in a restaurant in La Cienega in Los Angeles and basically asked people who is Jewish. And since the Jews were not in any mood to hide, they just went, yeah, me, and were attacked by iron rods. So yes, this is exactly why this role is so important. Israel never had a special envoy for anti-Semitism before, and this is why this role is so important, to actually shed light on this, because it's happening all the time.